It's the last time I'm doing this week. Actually, this is probably the last night that I'm going to do this. Because I have one more chapter of Emma Curtis Hopkins. So hopefully I will finish that up this Saturday. And then I probably will go ahead and do chapter 3 on Sunday. Then after that, I will finish reading those chapters on Saturday. But I'm trying to get a little ahead. I've already done the foreword, the intro, and all of that stuff, the introduction and all of that stuff. I did that last night. I also did chapter 1 last night. So that means that we are doing chapter 2 tonight. Now, why am I doing this? Okay. This is the Essential Ernest Holmes. This is a collection of Ernest Holmes' works from a variety of places that was put together by Reverend Jesse at the request of the organization when they were working with, it says on here, Putnam and Archer, Penguin, somebody. Yeah. So I need to put my glasses on to read it. So it was a request. They put a trio of books out, and Jesse got to do one of them. And this is one of the 3 books. Archer and Putnam. That's who it is. And after he put the book together, and it's a good getting to know Ernest book. That is exactly what it is. It's let's kind of give you an idea of who Ernest Holmes is. So after he put the book together, the organization said, well, why don't you create a class? Okay. So he created a class. Now, this is the book that he is using in the class. Because, he wrote the class and he put the book together. And there's not audible copies of a lot of Ernest Holmes books out there. So I said that I was thinking about doing it. I'm mildly dyslexic and I am mildly ADHD. I'm more hyperactive than I am ADD. So sitting still and reading for an hour is hard. But reading it out loud to Facebook and YouTube, to you guys, makes it easier for me to comprehend the material. And now there is an audible copy for anybody who is, as I said, dyslexic or has ADHD and has struggles to read. You can read along with me. Now, the other thing that you are going to get is commentary. Because I can't help it. But let me tell you who I am. I turned up on Jesse's doorstep at Creative Life in 2005. I became a practitioner in 2010. I went to ministerial school in 2013. I graduated and became a licensed minister in 2017. It is now 2026. You are going to get 20 years of experience, of my experience in science of mind. So, when I have a comment, it may actually be worth something. I am going to remind you, it is my opinion, and it is worth exactly that. So if you don't agree with me, that is totally okay. That is totally okay. You don't have to agree with me. And one of the things that, when I read the introduction in here, I don't know if it was in the introduction, Ernest left a lot of the stuff in there where Ernest calls God he and him. And he also talks a lot about man. Okay. And he did that because you can tell that Ernest is simply writing in his time. Okay. I, on the other hand, being a woman, get tired of saying he and him and man all the time. So, but I was pleasantly surprised in the first chapter. I didn't really have to gender neutral it a lot. Ernest did a lot of the gender neutraling for me. So he was aware of it, and did make it a point to, try not to give God a gender too much. So I appreciated that in the first part. So that is what you were getting. That is why I'm doing this. And I'm doing this because I am taking I'm taking Jesse's class. So now that all that preamble is out of the way, we are going to do chapter 2. And like I said, Jesse is teaching the Essential Ernest Holmes through Creative Life. We have one more week. If you join this Monday, you can still join by this Monday. It's a good class. I've taken it multiple times. I've read the book multiple times. It's worth it. So, feel free to join us. And you can go to the creativelife.org website to figure out how to join the class. So, if you are interested. Okay, now, so chapter 2 in the Essential Ernest Holmes is what we are looking for, we are looking at, and with. And as usual, he is starting with a short passage from The Voice Celestial, which is his epic poem. So we are going to start with the Farer. The brazen gates of doubt are riven to show the wonder of the whole. Would I could know the meaning of the part, I, who in pain have searched the wisdom of the world in vain. The presence. O foolish soul, O child of ignorance, who knows so much and knowing does not know. I come to thee as I to Moses came, unstopped his eyes and showed the Holy Land. To know too much is not to know at all. The vessel full, too full to hold, the waters drawn from deeper wells, cannot contain the draughts more newly drawn. For how can wisdom gain from knowledge, if knowledge be of that which is untrue? 1,000 falsehoods never make a fact. Turn then from thy half-truths, thy mortal mind, and go with me, nay, not to distant stars. The way of truth is never out, but in. If you have not read The Voice Celestial, it is amazing. And here's the good news. I've read it to you. I know it's up on the Creative Life YouTube channel. I don't know if the whole thing's up there. If it's not, the whole thing is up on the Running River Ryan YouTube channel. So, okay. All right. Moving into the writings. If all is one earnest reason, then that oneness is right where each of us is, and its ways are our ways. The part of us that seeks God is the presence of God at our level of awareness, seeking to consciously, deliberately reconnect with itself. These excerpts from his chapter on mental equivalence in the science of mind discuss our oneness in God, how we may have come to believe in separation from God as our source, and what to do about it. We walk by falling forward. Water falls by its own weight. The planets are eternally falling through space. Everything sustains itself in nature. The only reason humanity is limited is that they have not allowed the divine within them to more completely express. Humanity's divine individuality compels infinity to appear in their experience as duality because they have believed in duality. Prayer does something to the mind of the one praying. It does not do anything to God. The eternal gift is always made. The gift of God is the nature of God, the eternal givingness. God cannot help making the gift because God is the gift. We do not have to pray God to be God. God is God. Faith, then, touches a principle which responds, we may be certain of this. We should have more faith than we do rather than less, nor is it foolish to cultivate faith. All prayers will be answered when we pray aright. The first necessity is faith. Faith. But someone may exclaim, this is what has always been taught. This is nothing new. Correct. We have nothing new. We simply have a new approach to an old truth. A more intelligent, a more systematic way of consciously arriving at faith. This is what that treatment is for. Why is it that Jesus could say to the paralyzed man, take up thy bed and walk? Because Jesus knew when he said this, that the man would get up and walk. He not only believed that there was something to respond to him, but he had an equivalent of its response, which is just as necessary. The law is infinite and perfect, but in order to make a demonstration, we must have a mental equivalent of the thing we desire. A demonstration, like anything else in the objective life, is born out of a mental concept. The mind is the fashioning factor, and according to its range, vision, and positiveness, will be the circumstance or experience. For example, if one sees only unloveliness in others, it is because unloveliness is a strong element in themselves. The light they throw on others is generated in their own soul, and they see them as they choose to see them. Okay, hang on. That's going to take a minute to think about. Hey, Tom?
Yeah.
Can you bring me my water?
Yeah.
I just realized I forgot my water bottle. But the good news is Tom's home. Okay, so the light they throw on others is generated in their own soul, and they see them as they choose to see them. Worth thinking about. They hold constantly in their mind a mental equivalent of unloveliness and create unlovely reactions towards themselves. They are getting back what they are sending out. Okay, yeah. If a person believes themselves to be a failure, and that it is useless for them to try to be anything else, they carry with them the mental equivalent of failure. So they succeed in being a failure according to the law. This is their demonstration. Having a strong picture or mental concept and holding to that equivalent, regardless of circumstances or conditions, we must, sooner or later, manifest according to the concept. It follows, then, that the range of our possibilities at the present time does not extend far beyond the range of our present concepts. As we bring ourselves to a greater vision, we induce a greater concept, and thereby demonstrate more in our experience. In this way, there is a continuous growth and unfoldment taking place. We do not expect to give a treatment today for prosperity and have $1 million tomorrow. But little by little, we can unfold our consciousness through the acquisition of greater and still greater mental equivalents until at last we shall be made free. The way to proceed is to begin right where we are. It is not scientific to attempt to begin somewhere else. One who understands the systemic use of the law will understand that they are where they are because of what they are. But they will not say, I must remain where I am because of what I am. Okay. Instead, they will begin to disclaim what they appear to be. We sing a song, I love myself the way I am, and Reverend Arthur. Now, if you do not know who Reverend Arthur is, you are missing out, okay? Reverend Arthur is amazing. And he will be doing the Sunday service at the end of August. So, programming note there. But one day he took one of the lines out of that song, and he said, I love myself the way I am. And I love myself enough to not leave myself where I am. I love myself enough to change. That made all of our hair stand on end. We all went, oh, wow. I love myself enough to not leave myself where I am. This is exactly what Ernest is talking about right now. Okay? Instead, they will begin to disclaim what they appear to be, as their statements release wrong subjective tendencies, providing in their place a correct concept of life and reality. They will automatically be lifted out of their conditions. Impelling forces sweeping everything before them will set them free if they trust in spirit and the working of the law. Okay? Okay, instead, he will begin to disclaim what he appears to be. Stay with the one, never deviate from it. Never leave it for a moment. Nothing else can equal this attitude. To desert the truth in the hour of need is to prove that we do not know the truth. When things look the worst, that is the supreme moment to demonstrate to ourselves that there are no obstructions to the operation of truth. When things look the worst, it is the best time to work, the most satisfying time. The person who can throw themselves with complete abandon into the limitless sea of receptivity, having cut loose from all apparent moorings, is the one who will always receive the greatest reward. Since, as he says, all prayers will be answered when we pray aright, exactly what does he suggest? The core of his teaching being the oneness of all life in God, the type of prayer he advocates is one where the mind of the one praying moves to a place of acceptance. God, being all there is, need not be begged to provide. It's simply a matter of faith, the faith of God. The name given this type of prayer is spiritual mind treatment, the essential spiritual tool in his whole philosophy that you'll encounter again and again by reference or allusion in all the rest of his writings. Here, he takes us through it step by step. What are the requisites for the constructive use of our thought? Experience has shown that usually an effective prayer or spiritual mind treatment in some way incorporates within it these four elements: recognition, identification, declaration, and acceptance. But before we discuss these four steps, we need to remember that they are but suggestions. They are not hard and fast rules that must be followed. One or all four may be used. There is no formula involved, no ritual to repeat. There is only an easy, consistent flow of thought that is convinced of the truth of the content involved. The manner in which each will be able to use and direct their thought in constructive and beneficial channels will have to be worked out individually. The results forthcoming will verify the rightness of how each uses the creative power of their thought. There is no time, no place, no condition, or situation that is more appropriate than another for the use of thought as affirmative prayer. Prayer has had immediate manifestation, the answer in the midst of confusion and disaster. It has also had results that come from moments of peace and quiet. Most people have found it helpful to be alone, to be quiet, to be removed from distracting surroundings to have the mind free of a sense of pressure, worry, and tension. Now, let us consider the 4 elements that are usually contained in prayer that works in thought that is creative. 1, recognition. We know that there is one life. That life is God. There is one creator, one creation, one law, one intelligence, one ultimate reality. It is good, whole, perfect, complete, harmonious. 2, identification. We identify ourselves with God. Ooh. Bubbled my highlighter. Okay. I am that which thou art that which I am. The Father and I are one. There needs to be a conscious, intelligent sensing and feeling of the divine presence within and as what we are. We are a creation of God and we are expressing God. There is no separation between us and God. We are one. Number 3, declaration. There is a definite and specific action and movement of intelligence through thought, word, or idea for some definite purpose or person. Not supplication, wishing, hoping, or begging, but a concrete declaration of fact. A specializing of the universal good in some way. I really like that phrase. A specializing of universal good in some way. There is definitely established in thought the spiritual level of cause and creativity, a complete idea. An idea to which we may mentally point and know its reality as though we were pointing to the sun and saying, there's the sun. We know that such a declaration of an idea is God speaking its word in us, God being an active agent in its own creation. 4, acceptance. We accept our declaration, the word we have spoken, as being manifest now. No delay is involved between this cause and its appearance as effect. We accept that our word, the declaration we have made, is the supreme intelligence speaking through us, and that according to the nature of the way it works, through law, our word automatically manifests in accord with law, and in our acceptance of that reality, this good as a tangible effect in our experience, we give thanks that it is so that we can now believe it is done unto us. Okay, so just a couple of things. Notice that there are only 4. Yet, if you have been through any science of mind classes that teach treatment, there are 5 steps. And notice that step 4 is not acceptance. It's thanksgiving. And then step 5 is release. Now, he did mention thanksgiving in there. He mentioned gratitude. So it's really interesting that, we kind of codified the way we teach it. Now, here's the thing about the 5 steps. As he said, there's no one way to do it. There's no right way to do it. You can use any of the steps, all of the steps, none of the steps. One time as a challenge, I gave one of my students, because he was bored, I said, do the steps backwards. Start with release. And he went, ooh. It re-energized his treatment to do it backwards. So, and if you listen to me do treatments, sometimes I do them out of order. I generally do the 5 steps because I am doing it in a public way when I'm doing it on platform. So I'm doing it in the way that I was taught. But sometimes I get them out of order. Sometimes I don't do it on purpose. It's just the way it happens. So you can do any or all the steps in any order that you want. And the Thanksgiving and release, and then the idea about the acceptance now. So that can be a challenge because we treat in the present tense as if we already have it. We believe as if we have it. Okay. So how I got around that was what I started realizing is, if what I want is good and in alignment with my good, with the good, then it already exists in the mind of God. It may not be physically present right in front of me, but it already exists in the mind of God, so I can treat the present tense. If that helps, please take it. If it doesn't, that's okay too. Because like he said, there's no one way to do this. All right. Ernest was attracted to a spiritual method that delivered results in the here and now instead of promises of the hereafter. He used the term demonstration to mean results, as had Mary Baker Eddy before him, in the sense that what is intangibly known and felt then demonstrates or shows itself in tangible form. In the language of metaphysics, a demonstration is made when the thing is accomplished, which the one treating desires to achieve, whether it be health, happiness, or abundance. A demonstration is a manifestation. It is a prayer answered. When the word of a practitioner takes form, this is a demonstration. When a desire is given a subject mold and then becomes objectified in the life of the one for whom the practitioner is working, this is a demonstration. We cannot demonstrate beyond our ability to mentally embody an idea. If you can dream it, you can do it. Can you embody the idea? That's the idea here. The argument is between our experience, what the world believes, and what we are convinced is the truth. The possibility of demonstrating does not depend upon environment, condition, location, personality, or opportunity. It depends solely upon our belief and our acceptance and our willingness to comply with the law through which all good comes. The universe will never deny us anything unless we conceive that it is possible for us to think of something that is impossible for the universe to produce. Everyone who asks receives according to their belief. Here are some additional thoughts of his on the nature of effective prayer. Each day and every hour we are meeting the eternal realities of life. And in such a degree as we cooperate with these eternal realities in love, in peace, in wisdom, and in joy, believing and receiving, we are automatically blessed. Our prayer is answered before it is uttered. Prayer, in its truest sense, is not a petition, not a supplication, not a wail of despair. It is rather an alignment, a unifying process which takes place in the mind as it reaches to its divine self and to that power which is greater than human understanding. In the act of such prayerful and reverent communion with God, one senses the unity of good, the completeness of life, and at times the veil of doubt is lifted and the face of reality appears. This consciousness, which has been referred to as the secret place of the Most High, is an experience rising out of the conviction that God is all there is, beside whom there is none else. Prayer, then, is communion, and this communion pronounces life to be good. Prayerful communion ascends to that place where unity has not yet become variety, where the unformed one is ready to take any specific shape. In this act of communion, the individual becomes co-partner with the eternal and gives birth to time, space, and conditions. Okay, hang on. Prayer then is communion. Yep. They say that when we pray, we talk to God, and when we meditate, we listen to God. Okay. All manifestation of life is from an invisible to a visible plane through a silent, effortless process of spiritual realization. We must unify in our own mentalities with pure spirit. To each of us, individually, God or Spirit is the supreme personality of the universe, the supreme personality of that which we ourselves are. It is only as the relationship of the individual to the deity becomes enlarged that one has a consciousness of power. In treatment, there should always be a recognition of the absolute unity of God and humanity, the oneness, inseparability, indivisibility, changelessness. God as the big circle and humanity as the little circle. Humanity is in God, God is in humanity, just as a drop of water is in the ocean, while the ocean is in a drop of water, which I believe is a quote from Rumi. But what is fear? Nothing more or less than the negative use of faith. Faith misplaced, a belief in two powers instead of one, a belief that there can be a power opposed to God whose influence and ability may bring us to evil. We do not say that humanity cannot sin. What we say is that they do sin or make mistakes, and that they are thereby automatically punished as long as they continue to make mistakes. We are not punished for our sins, but by them. Sin is its own punishment, and righteousness its own reward. One of my favorite definitions of sin is self-inflicted nonsense. In giving mental and spiritual treatments, it is better not to dwell too much on the negative, since we are liable to give it undue importance. To affirm the presence of God is better than to deny the presence of evil. And here's where I'm going to remind you, where your attention goes is where your power goes. Which is why he's saying don't dwell on the negative, because then you are giving the negative more power. Okay? All right, back to Ernest. When Jesus explained to his disciples that they failed to heal because of a lack of faith, they protested that they did have faith in God. Jesus explained to them that this was insufficient. They must have the faith of God. The faith of God is very different from a faith in God. The faith of God is God. Therefore, it is imperative that we turn from the relative, because to view limitation is to impress it upon the mind and accentuate the state of consciousness which produced it. He even offers suggestions on how often to treat. Never let go of the mental image until it becomes manifested. Daily bring up the clear picture of what is wanted and impress it on the mind as an accomplished fact. This impressing on our mind the thought of what we wish to realize will cause our own minds to impress the same thought on the universal mind. In this way, we shall be praying without ceasing. We do not have to hold continually the thought of something we want in order to get it, but the thought that we may inwardly become the thing we want. 15 minutes twice each day is time enough to spend in order to demonstrate anything. But the rest of the time ought to be spent constructively. That is, we must stop all negative thinking and give over all wrong thought, holding fast to the realization that it is now done unto us. We must know that we are dealing with the only power there is in the universe, that there is none other beside it, and that we are in it, partaking of its nature and its laws. Life will become one grand song when we realize that since God is for us, none can be against us. We shall cease merely to exist. We shall live. Changing one's experience of life comes easy once the viewpoint is shifted to an acceptance of greater good. Here, he expands on the idea to have a friend be a friend. When we find that we are without friends, the thing to do is at once send our thought out to the whole world. Send it full of love and affection, knowing that this thought will meet the desires of some other person who is wanting the same thing, and in some way the two will be drawn together. Get over thinking that people are queer. That kind of thought will only produce misunderstandings and cause us to lose the friends we have now. Think of the whole world as your friend, but you must also be the friend of the whole world. In this way, and with this simple practice, you will draw to you so many friends that time will be too short to enjoy them all. Refuse to see the negative side of anyone. Refuse to let yourself misunderstand or be misunderstood. Do not be morbid. Know that everyone wants you to have the best. Affirm this wherever you go, and you will find things just as you wish them to be. But you must also be the friend of the whole world. In this, the first of several excerpts from his magazine articles, Ernest speaks of the universal availability of God and good. Most people who believe in God believe in prayer. It is natural that each one who prays shall feel their way of praying is the only way to pray, and that it is the right way. We are all more or less familiar with the different religious beliefs and approaches to reality, each prescribing the way to pray, and each is right for them who believe in it. I believe that every person's prayer is good, but I believe that all people's prayers, insofar as they are effective because they embody certain universal principles, which, if we understood, we could consciously use, and that power which is obtained by a few would be as easily used by all. If spiritual things be true, it is not enough to simply declare they are so. We have to understand how they work and why, the laws governing them. Then we shall be able to say, here it is. This is the way it works. You can use it, and I can use it. There is no special dispensation of providence. There is no God who cares more for the Jews than it does for the Gentiles, or cares more for the Gentiles than it does for the Jews. And as intelligent observers, we must realize that God is a universal presence, a neutral force, an impersonal observer, a divine and impartial giver, forever pouring itself upon its creation. God is an indwelling presence. I do not believe in lost souls, but I do believe that every soul is in search of itself. But I do believe that every living soul is in search of themselves and their relationship to what reality is. We have to come to believe that there is a reality which we sense in our own being, giving birth to a direct relationship to the infinite. All the magnificence and the beauty and the power and the peace which is commiserate with the estimation of the meaning of the infinite God. Okay. We have been discussing perfect intelligence, perfect law, and perfect life. But a practical question which might arise is, how much can apparently imperfect humanity expect to demonstrate? Should we expect absolute physical perfection, limitless wealth, or flawless happiness? Of course, there must be a sensible and logical answer to such questions. We do not say that because a person thinks about $1 million, they will have $1 million. What we do say is this. While it is true that, so far as principle is concerned, we can have what good we desire according to the law of cause and effect, it is also true that no matter what we may desire, we shall only have what we are able to accept. Since this accepting is mental, we shall only experience what we are able to embody in our thought. In other words, each one will automatically attract good into their experience in accord with their acceptance of life. This is one of the principal ideas of the science of mind and is called the law of mental equivalence. What would fill the needs for one person might not do it for another. What one person might regard as normal possibly would stagger the imagination of another by its very bigness. Our standard of expectancy depends entirely upon ourselves. Every demonstration is made at the exact level of expectancy, the expectancy embodied in thought. Since no one can step out of or away from themselves, it would be impossible for anyone to escape the logic of their own thought. There is a very nice song entitled "Wishing Will Make It So." It sounds encouraging, but it is not true. The world is full of wishers who are not getters. We never get that for which we merely wish. A wish means nothing until it becomes a definite declaration that we now possess the good we need, a declaration backed by conviction of the quality and quantity of good which we expect to experience. At this point, we must understand that we have to rise above much of the world's confused thought. The world has dropped its eyes to the ground. Hungry for much, it is satisfied with little. Therefore, we must strike out for the heights, away from the mists and fogs of humanity's doubts, and must see things through the eyes of spirit. Spirit is the only reality, but most of humanity's thinking is colored by the relative. If one has a little better health than their neighbor, they are content. If their business is a little better than the average, they are pleased. If they find a fuller measure of happiness than that of the general run of humanity, they feel they are blessed. They are making a mistake of measuring their experience by an imperfect standard. Instead of establishing their expectancy in accord with the limited experience of humanity generally, they need to base it on something bigger and better. The standards of the race are always in a state of flux, changing from generation to generation, from day to day, and from individual to individual. But the standard of spirit is ageless, changeless, unvarying. It is perfection, nothing less. When the level of the individual's thinking is divorced from that of the world and raised to that of the spirit, their standard changes from that of imperfection to perfection. This is the true norm. Regardless of their present experience, humanity has access to perfection from the minutest detail of their life. Spirit could not possibly have any idea which is less than perfection. Anything less than this implies an imperfect spirit, or something opposed to God, which cannot be. Spirit knows only the perfect and knows nothing of the imperfect. Every step of the great creative activity of spirit has been characterized by perfection. The tiniest organism adheres to a perfect pattern and functions according to a perfect law. The blade of grass is a thing of perfection, functioning perfectly in its particular sphere. All its atoms are things of perfection, acting and reacting according to perfect law. The same perfection is true regarding humanity, but with this exception. Humanity can think, and they have gradually built mental concepts of imperfection, have gazed upon them, and then have fallen down and worshipped them. Instead of knowing a God of perfection, humanity, in their imagination, has created many gods of imperfection, and they are all creatures of their own imagination. They have no basis in reality. Wow, that was kind of a harsh ending there. Okay, now that was an excerpt. There's a whole article that goes with that. And remember that I told you that he ends each little section. I don't know if you can. Oh, no, I'm not going to be able to get it up there. See these little numbers? Okay. When you flip to the back to notes, you can go to which chapter, look up that number, and it will tell you exactly where that is from. So if you want to read the whole thing, you can do that. Okay? Because now I'm kind of curious to read the rest of the article. All right, moving on. The idea of our being at choice in our lives leads to large questions about why things happen as they do. Did we choose them? Did we choose by not choosing? Or is our choice limited and situational? Ernest believed in perfection as inclusivity, meaning that everything happens for a reason, which may not be the reason we first imagined, and is either an expression of our wholeness or an opportunity to heal. Here he discusses accidents from this standpoint. Who would stand in front of an Let me start over. Who would stand in front of an automobile and let it run them over just for the fun of it? Or jump off a roof and break a leg merely to take a rest cure in the hospital? It is said that 80% of all accidents are unconsciously invited. Unconsciously invited is not such an innocent term as it seems to be, because it deals with the fact that 9/10 of our thinking is not even conscious. We do not consciously think of driving our cars or walking down the street or having our food digest or making our hearts beat. Just as there are automatic reactions in our physical body, so there are deeper automatic reactions in our mind. Our mind is really the creative thing within us. But what has this to do with accidents? Well, let us see. It is now known that when we unconsciously look forward to more trouble than pleasure from one particular incident, we unconsciously try to avoid that situation. For instance, a person starts down the street on an important mission, but perhaps they feel that it is a situation they fear that they cannot quite handle. They are not willing to admit this because then they would be calling themselves a coward, and we all need self-esteem. But their subconscious reaction, without the consent of their intellect or conscious awareness, causes them to fall down and break their arm, their leg, or their nose. Their emotional, unconscious desire has won over their intellect. It has seen to it that they need not meet a situation which they are unconsciously afraid of. One of the axioms of Émile Coué was that when the will and imagination are in conflict, the imagination, not the will, always wins. Such is our nature. It is well known that this can be carried out so far that perhaps instead of meeting with an accident, they might be seized by a physical ailment. Okay. All right. And there is actual science. You can literally make yourself sick if you don't want to deal with the situation. Oh my goodness. And if you don't know who Emile Coué is, Emilecoue, look him up. He's fascinating. He's considered the father of hypnotism, but not the way you think. I've got his book. It's a fascinating and it's a little book. But he is completely fascinating and definitely worth looking into. Okay, back to Ernest. This mind of ours is a pretty terrific thing. If it can produce 80% of our accidents, what else can it do to us? There is no question but that it governs the unconscious functioning of the body, all these silent forces that conspire to maintain our physical well-being. The Bible says, as a person thinketh in their heart, so are they. And Jesus, the most enlightened of all people, said that it is done unto us as we believe. But Jesus did not explain to his followers that 90% of their belief was unconscious. It has taken the world 2,000 years to discover this. But does this mean that we are to be afraid of the unconscious workings of our mind? Of course not. Because the very fact that the mind is creative shows that we are persons in our own right. If we were not creative, we merely would be mental automatons, robots, non-entities. We would not be persons at all. We would be like cogs in a wheel or bolts in a piece of machinery, and this is not what life has intended for us at all. When life created us, it gave us the two great endowments of God, the two highest gifts of heaven, love and creativity. Love, so that we may have confidence in life, a sense of security and peace and joy in living. Creativity, so that we can really live as persons and express ourselves individually. Life has done very well by us. Would it be too much to say that God has given us the best it has and then let us alone to discover ourselves? Okay. We are somebody. I am glad that we are. I would rather have this creative thing within me, even though it does produce a pain now and then, or break a toe or two, than to be without it. After all, it is the thing that painted all the Madonnas and built all of the cathedrals. It is the thing that made all the inventions and wrote all the books. We should not be afraid of this creative thing in us, for it is the greatest gift of life. God never makes mistakes, and there are no accidents in the divine life. Everything is so ordained that when we learn to make a right use of the laws of life, freedom, love, beauty, happiness, and wholeness must follow. Because life itself is neither weak, unhappy, nor inadequate. The second of his introductory essays presents a discussion of the law of mind, the creative process by which thoughts become things. Oh, and this is it. So we are about to do the way it works. All right. The way it works. The science of mind is not a special revelation of any individual. It is, rather, the culmination of all revelations. We take the good wherever we find it, making it our own insofar as we understand it. The realization that good is universal and that as much good as any individual is able to incorporate in their life is theirs to use, is what constitutes the science of mind and spirit. We have discussed the nature of the thing as being universal energy, mind, intelligence, spirit. Finding consciousness and individualized centers of expression through us, and that humanity's intelligence is this universal mind functioning at the level of humanity's concept of it. This is the essence of the whole teaching. There is a universal mind, spirit, intelligence that is the origin of everything. It is the first cause. It is God. This universal life and energy finds an outlet in and through all that is energized and through everything that lives. There is one energy back of all that is energized. This energy is in everything. There is one spirit back of all expression. That is the meaning of the mystical saying, "In him we live, move, and have our being." Acts 17:28. The life which we live is the universal life expressing through us. Else, how could we live? Our thought and emotion is the use we make, consciously or unconsciously, of this original creative thing that is the cause of everything. Therefore, we shall say that the mind, spirit, intelligence, which we find in ourselves, is as much of this original creative God as we understand. This is not robbing God. Wait, hang on. That this is not robbing God is a self-evident fact. Since we are, then we are real and actual and have existence. And since we can reduce all that is to a fundamental unit, we find that we have this proposition. Wait a minute. Hang on. Every now and again, he throws in weird punctuation, which makes the sentences awkward, and then I don't know what I just read. So I'm going to try that again, okay? That this is not robbing God is a self-evident fact. Since we are, then we are real and actual and have existence. And since we can reduce all that is to a fundamental unit, we find that we have this proposition. There is spirit, or this invisible cause, and nothing, out of which all things are to be made. Now spirit plus nothing leaves spirit only. Hence there is one original cause and nothing, out of which we are made. In other words, we are made from this thing. That's why we are called the Son of God, the child of God. Okay, we're back in the textbook, and remember that he can be a little weird and awkward in the textbook. And I think this is one of those places where he's being a little awkward. Let's just go with it, okay? We now know that this is what we are because we could not be anything else, but we do not know how much of this we are. When we see it as it is, then we shall see ourselves as we are. We can only see it by looking at it through our own eyes. Hence, we shall find a better God when we have arrived at a higher standard for humanity. If God is to interpret itself to humanity, it must interpret itself through humanity. And the Spirit can make no gift that we do not accept. This original life is infinite. It is good. It is filled with peace. It is of the essence of purity. It is the ultimate of intelligence. It is power. It is law. It is life. It is in us. In that inner sanctuary of our own nature, hidden perhaps from objective gaze, nestles the seed perfection. In our ignorance of the truth, we have misused the highest power we possess. And so great is this power, so complete is our freedom in it, so absolute the dominion of law through it, that the misuse of this power has brought upon us the very condition from which we suffer. We are bound because we are first free. The power which appears to bind us is the only power in the universe which can free us. This is why Jesus summed up his whole philosophy in this simple statement: "It is done unto you as you believe." The great teacher looked so deeply into nature that... Okay, hang on. The great teacher looked so deeply into nature that she revealed her fundamental simplicity to him, that believe, and that as symbolized heaven and hell. And so we suffer, not because suffering is imposed upon us, but because we are ignorant of our true nature. The thing, then, works for us by working through us and is us always. It cannot work for us in any other way. It spreads itself over the whole universe and shouts at us from every angle, but it can become power to us only when we recognize it as power. We cannot recognize that it is while we are believing that it is not. Ouch. Yep. We cannot recognize that it is while we are believing that it is not. Hence, it is written, "They entered not in because of unbelief." I believe that's Hebrews 4:6. We may enter in because of our belief, but we cannot enter while there is unbelief. Here we come to a house divided against itself. If we say we can only experience a little good, then we shall experience but a little good. But if we say, with Emerson, "There is no great and no small to the soul that maketh all," then we may experience a greater good because we have conceived it. Therefore, our belief sets the limit to our demonstration of a principle which, of itself, is without limit. It is ready to fill everything because it is infinite. So, it is not a question of its willingness or of its ability. It is entirely a question of our own receptivity. That we must go the way of the law is a fundamental tenet of this science, because nature obeys us as we first obey it, and our obedience to it is our acceptance of it. How much can we believe? As much as we can believe will be done unto us. When the consciousness speaks, the law receives and executes. When a farmer plants a seed, he invokes the law. That which follows is done by the mechanical side of nature, which has no volition of its own. Involution is the cause and evolution is the effect. When a practitioner thinks or gives a treatment or makes a prayer, they are dealing with involution, the first step of the creative order. This is what the Bible calls the Word. That which follows is evolution, or the unfoldment of the word or concept into objective experience. We are thinking, willing, knowing, conscious centers of life. We are surrounded by, immersed in, and there is flowing through us a creative something. Call it what you will. The sum total of all our thought will propose... hang on. All those weird commas again. Let me try that again. The sum total of all our thought, will, purpose, and belief creates a tendency in this law that causes it to react to us according to the sum total of our belief. Sum total of that belief. Ugh. Ignorance of the law excuses no one from its effects. Yeah, let me say that again. Ignorance of the law excuses no one from its effects. If, then, certain specific ways of thoughts and belief have produced limitations, other beliefs will change them. We must learn to believe. The approach should be direct and it should be specific. Suppose one is laboring under the idea of limitation. Their whole thought is a picture of limitation. Where are they placing themselves in mind? Are they not, in substance, saying, I cannot have and enjoy good things? And they are demonstrating that they cannot have or accomplish good. It may take time to reshape the basis of their thought. They must commence by saying, I perceive that because I am what I am, because of this infinite thing that overshadows eternity and finds its abiding place in me. I know that good is now mine, all good. Okay, you know what? I love Ernest, but I'm not going to say that. That's awkward and weird. But that's why he says there's no right way to do it. You have to make it individual to yourself. But you get where he's going. Ugh. There is no mental coercion in this. We do not will things to be done. Things are brought into being, not by will, but by the power of self-assertive truth. How much can one demonstrate? Just what one can believe. How much can we see? How much can we accept? How much can we find in our consciousness that is no longer repudiated by our own denials? Whatever that is, that much we can have. The gardener goes forth in faith to sow their seeds. They have learned that as they sow, so shall they reap, that the law works for all alike. We must accustom ourselves to the concept of the impersonalness, or Jesse likes the word impartialness. So, impartialness of the law, the availability of the law, and the mechanical accuracy of the law. If we can conceive of only a little good, that is as much as we can experience. We must instill into the mind the fundamental proposition that good is without bounds. Only good and loving kindness shall follow me all of my days. Psalm 23. We must get this concept rather than continuing to think there is a power of evil as opposed to the power of good. We experience good and evil because we perceive a presence of duality rather than unity. Ooh. Then, knowing that the thing can work for us only through us, let us begin to accept today more good than we experienced yesterday, and to know that we shall reap a harvest of fulfilled desires. The time must come when we shall have left the apparent evil behind, when it shall be rolled up like a scroll and numbered with the things that were once thought to be. Let us realize and work with this sound knowledge and perfect faith, that as high as we shall make our mark in mind and spirit, so high shall be its outward manifestation in our material world. His affirmation for you, because remember he said he was going to end each, so he starts with the Voice Celestial poem and he ends with an affirmation from Ernest. So this is Ernest's affirmation for you. I expect everything I do to prosper. I enthusiastically expect success. I let good flow into my experience. I am seeking good in every direction I look. I am looking forward to more good. I am entering into a deeper understanding of life. I am recognizing my union with all people and all events. And that, my friends, is chapter 2 in the Essential Ernest Holmes. Whew. So now I'm going to go get a nice, good, long drink of cold water and go rest my voice. And I will be back, hopefully at a reasonable time on a Saturday to finish High Mysticism for you, because we literally have one chapter to go. But before that, I will be back in the morning to do a little section of Hidden Power of the Bible. Thank goodness in the morning all I'm doing is like 15 or 20 minutes. Spiritual practice. Here we are. All right, my friends, I hope you enjoyed chapter 2 of Essential Ernest Holmes. And I hope you enjoy the class as well. All right, beloveds, I will see you